Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
This is Charlotte-Canion, your host, author of You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents. And we will be speaking with Alan-C-Elliott this evening, and I look forward to this. He's the author, and I'm only going to give you the name of a couple of them. Willy, the Texas Longhorn, American Dream, The Presidential Elephants, The History of Golf, Angels Love Donuts, and there's many, many more. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today. How are you doing, Charlotte?
I am doing well. Tell us a little bit about your background in your family and just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Dallas. Went to Dallas schools, and then on to Dallas Baptist College and Southern Methodist University. So I basically have stayed around Dallas almost all my life, and really started writing while I was in high school. I had some great English teachers, and that's what sort of got me kick-started in writing.
So have you been writing most of your life?
Yes, off and on. I actually got my first book published while I was in graduate school, maybe 25 years old, something like that.
Oh, that is super. That's super. Well, tell us a little bit about your first book.
Well, the first book is a children's book called On Sunday the Wind Came. And my wife taught second grade, and so I had a lot of children's books around me. I really enjoyed them, and so I actually got started writing articles for magazines, but I wanted to try my hand at writing other kinds of stories. So I worked on a number of children's book stories and sent one in, and sure enough, they liked it. And it takes about a year to get it published, but it came out in 1980. Which is a long time ago, but it was my first book, and still love it. It's still in print. It's actually now in English and Spanish. It's a bilingual book now.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. So you've written articles for magazines as well. Were they story form, or were you were they
No,
literary?
they were early on they were nonfiction things. I was in a scientific course of study, so it was an era where computers were just coming out. So a lot of them had to do with sort of early computer concepts and how to do things on the computer, things like that.
Okay, so they were more textual. Have you written any textbook or? Yeah,
actually, that sort of moved into where. Some years later, I actually wrote a textbook that was used for a number of years, a sort of introduction to microcomputing kind of textbook that covered early versions of how to use Word and Excel and things like that. That was a long time ago, too.
Yes, it is. But there's a lot of authors listening to this that will definitely recognize where it's at. Okay, well, tell us what one of your, let's just say, I'm sure you love all of your books, but tell us a little bit about one of your favorites. I'm sure you've got more than one that's your favorite.
Well, probably the one that is my favorite right now is another children's book called Willy, the Texas Longhorn. It's a Texas twist on the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer story, because instead of a reindeer, it stars a longhorn, and it's all about how Willy thinks that if a reindeer can fly, well, then a longhorn ought to be able to do it too. And of course, as all of his friends said, give up your highfalutin ways, you can't do that. But he writes a letter to Santa, and sure enough, one foggy night, Santa needs some help flying around Texas, so the elves paint his horns bright blue, neon blue, and they're bright enough to help Santa fly around Texas and deliver gifts. So that's sort of the story of Willy the Texas Longhorn.
Now, you sound like some of your stories are ones you would read directly to kids. Do you have experience in reading to kids? And tell us some of those.
Yeah, it's fun to read to kids. I've not too long ago, the Dallas main library downtown. I think yearly they have several events where children's book authors can come, and children are there, and you get to read to them, and you get to do silly things with them, and that's always a lot of fun. And kids are so open to hearing stories and doing things with you, making funny noises and funny faces and things like that. That it's always just a lot of fun to read your story to them and have them react to it.
You told me something early on. What is it your wife says you are?
Oh, well, you asked me about what kind of person I am, and I said sometimes she says I'm a party waiting to happen.
A party waiting to happen. So kids would love that. Kids definitely would love that.
Kids definitely like party.
Yeah. Well, have you ever dressed up as different characters?
No, I never have. I haven't ever done that. I guess I'm funny looking enough to just go on my own.
Well, you got one that's kind of got me intrigued here. The presidential elephants. What
no,
is that
that's actually there are actually a couple of authors out there with my name, so that's not one of them. That's not one of my books.
One of yours. Well, it ended up under
but it sounds interesting.
It does sound interesting. Well, tell us about. Is Angels?
Angels Love Donuts is actually a movie that was done by that I co-authored with Leon McWhorter, and he and I had worked with a drama group here in Dallas for over 10 years and done a number of plays and had written some plays. And this particular one sort of caught the eye of some Hollywood producer, and he encouraged us to rewrite it in a movie format, which we did, and then we produced it as an independent movie. And we felt really good about it. It's an inspirational family comedy, and it got won 4 out of 5 Doves from the Dove Foundation, and was on Netflix for a while, and still appears occasionally on television. So we were really pleased. That was a really nice and exciting kind of time, and it was all Dallas talent doing it. So it was really a local effort.
Oh, sounds intriguing. So have you actually made a living as an author most of your life?
I've been a teacher most of my life. So, you look at books and you might think you make a whole lot of money out of them. But, if you're one of those few authors that hits the big time, you can. But most authors do it for the love of writing, and, you make a little bit. But mostly it's just people who they got to write, and so they write books, and I guess that's what I've been doing for quite a number of years.
Well, how many books have you written all total?
I think around 25. It sort of depends on how you count them, because some of them are second editions and slight variations on the books, but about 25.
About 25. Well, what was one of the hardest ones that you wrote?
Well, there were 2 books that I wrote. I'll talk about one of them called Texas Ingenuity, which took me several years to write. It's basically, and it's currently out. It's one of my latest books, actually. But it's all about Texans, innovative Texans, and things that were invented in Texas. So it's sort of a little bit of a Texas history. It starts with Sam Houston, but it goes through quite a number of other things in Texas, like how was Dr. Pepper invented, liquid paper, the computer chip, frozen margaritas, fajitas, even the hamburger and onion rings were invented in Texas. And things like Hilton hotels got started in Texas. Most people don't know that. They probably know that 7-Eleven did, but lots of interesting people and lots of things that happened. That the purpose of the book, the reason it's called Texas Ingenuity, is I tried to pick out inventions and inventors that changed the world. And obviously things like the computer chip changed the world, because everything we use, the cell phone I'm talking on right now, wouldn't be here without the computer chip. And of course that was done through TI, and just many other things that were created, or even music, that was created in Texas. Some of of our musicians, like Willie Nelson and stuff, has affected music all over the world. So Van Cliburn, the entire spectrum of music, and football, Tom Landry, just you name it. and there is some Texas Ingenuity involved in the creation or the promotion or some new aspect of almost everything in the world.
So if someone was really interested in Texas trivia, you've got it cornered.
It's full of a lot of Texas trivia, that's for sure.
Well, what was one of the most... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I was looking at my index just a few minutes ago to sort of remember what I had there, and I was surprised it's about 15 pages long, listing all the various interesting things in here. Just looking at it, you got things like Chet Atkins and Sir David Attenborough, Austin City Limits, Moses Austin, Gene Autry. I mean, they just people after people and thing after thing that was related in Texas, and so there's stories about them. How was chili invented? That's a very interesting story.
So chili came from Texas, not Mexico?
Well, the chili we know comes from Texas. I mean, there's always been sort of a beef stew around there, but the chili that we know was really created on the cattle drive, and it was created, history believes that it was created probably by the cooks on cattle drives who basically had to use what was available to them to fix up something that the cowboys would eat. And of course they had meat, and they had particularly down the ones that had started around San Antonio, that era. They had chili peppers and things like that, and they learned to blend it all together and use the meat that they had to make something that the cowboys liked. And it was chili. And it got started in San Antonio. They used to have something in San Antonio called the Chili Queens, and it was set up downtown. It was just a big plaza, and you'd have 20 or 30 chili. It was almost like a chili cook-off. You'd have people cooking chili, and people from all over would come and get the chili, and it was a big, almost fiesta kind of atmosphere, and that's really where chili got started.
Well, that sounds interesting. Well, Alan, if you'll just hang on, and all of our listeners will hang on, we'll be right back with Alan-C-Elliott and hear more about his exciting books.
Howdy, I'm John Cruder, the Midnight Marauder. I guess you might say that I'm a vigilante who rights the wrongs I see along my many travels to balance the scales of justice, especially those of the corrupt and murderous members of the Town Council of Bandera, Texas. You can follow my many adventures in a series of Midnight Marauder books written by Roy Clinton on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com. Or, if you prefer, listen to my adventures in audiobook form by downloading them from Audible.com or iTunes. This is R. William James, the voice of the Midnight Marauder.
Do you love to read great new ebooks? Visit EBG247.com. Be the first to discover the next bestseller. At EBG247, we have the web's largest selection of great new book reads, from that amazing new fiction or nonfiction to horror, romance, and fantasy. We even have today's best children's books. That's EBG247.com. New books arrive daily, and all ebooks start at just 99 cents. If you love to read, then you'll love EBG247.com. Low prices, large selection, and an easy-to-use website. It's all only at EBG247.com.
Headlines. Cryptocurrency vultures are circling around failing governments. Darknet predators are rushing to market with their newest digital product. They promise economic salvation, even as they coupon clips straight from your digital wallet. The newest techno-thriller installment from Breakfield and Berkey, The Enigma Source. Book 10 of the Enigma series continues the combat of cyber good guys versus cyber thugs set in today's digital landscape. Texas Authors is proud to be a supporter of IndieBeacon.com, a website that supports indie authors from around the world. If you are looking for help with marketing or getting published, IndieBeacon.com can assist you. Years of experience by the founder is available to any indie author looking for help. IndieBeacon.com, a place for creative souls to find help in marketing their creations.
I am Grace Allison Blair, an award-winning author, motivational speaker, and modern mystic. I have combined spiritual and psychological principles in my nonfiction self-help books under Grace Allison and fiction books under Grace Blair. Go to modernmysticmedia.com to find Do You Have a Dream? 5 Keys to Realize Your Dream, and my novel, Einstein's Compass, a YA time traveler adventure.
Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
This is Charlotte-Canion, and we have the pleasure of speaking with Alan-c-Elliott, and he's the author of many wonderful books, and a lot of them are children books. Alan, I wanted to ask you a question. You grew up in I guess, the Dallas area, and I'm sure you went out to the state fair. Did you ever use anything from the state fair in your books or characters that you met out there, or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's not a children's book, but I actually recorded a song called "The Legend of Big Tex" that sort of tells a fictitious history of Big Tex, a little bit like he's obviously a larger in life kind of character, but he exemplifies, the kind of Texas that we all want, the friendly, howdy y'all kind of thing. And so, actually, a friend of mine with the Light Crust Doughboys helped me put together and record a song, sort of like it's like a Bob Wills song. So that was a lot of fun to do, and it's out there on YouTube. It's got more than 50,000 hits. So every year when the state fair comes around, it sort of gets a bump of people listening to it, and it's been on some of the local radios also around the state fair.
Well, if you wrote the music, could you hum a few bars?
Well, the legend of Big Tex, they say that it is so. He was born in the hearts of men who fought at the Alamo. Those great men and women who nations came to know are a part of the legend that grows and grows and grows.
No, I have to go out there and you said it's on YouTube, huh?
Just do a search of the legend of Big Tex, and it'll be out there.
Now, there's a history of when Big Tex started. When did that?
Yes, in fact, Jack Bridges, who's an artist here in Dallas from many years ago, he worked with the then mayor Thornton. There's actually a very large Santa Claus in Kearns, Texas, that was built to sort of help with their Christmas shopping season and to attract people. And so Mayor Thornton and Jack Bridges saw this guy out there and said, "Hey, that's an interesting guy." This was about 1950 or 51. And so Jack had the idea, well, let's turn that into a Texas guy and put it out at the state fair. And so in 1952, he remodeled that Santa Claus and made it into what we now know as Big Tex.
Wow.
And so he installed it in 1950. It was only meant to be there for a year or two. And so they were going to take it. They weren't going to put it up after a few years, but there was a campaign in Texas with elementary school students who chipped in pennies and raised a bunch of money to see if Big Tex could come back to the fair. And of course, it came back, and now it's been there for many years, 60 years.
Yeah, and he caught on fire a year or two ago.
Yeah.
That was not.
Now, fortunately, I don't know fortunately, but Jack Bridges put it up every year, almost until the year he died in about 2000. So that occurred some years after he died. So he's not with us anymore.
Wasn't he the voice? Was he the voice?
No, he wasn't the voice. But he certainly was the artist who created it, and I've talked to a number of his family members. They remember, the head of Big Tex in a big building and the boots and things. He would redo them every once in a while, and every year they'd go and repair them and put them back together and put it up at the state fair.
And sew the clothes.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big outfit. You write children's books, but do you ever take real-life people that you meet and characters and incorporate them into your stories, or how do you get inspired for your children's?
Well, I do have, every author has a bunch of books that they have sort of waiting to be published, and so I have a number of books about people that I think would make good children's books. Some of them, some version of them, are either in my book called Texas Ingenuity, and there's another book that I wrote some years ago called A Daily Dose of the American Dream, and all of these books have little short biographies of people who did something interesting. And so, for instance, most people don't know who Ovida Hobby is. You recognize the name Hobby, but she was the wife of Governor Hobby. But the thing about her is she was a real organizer. She was a smart lady. She worked with the Texas legislature on a bunch of things. And when World War II rolled around and they needed somebody to begin the WACs, which is the Women's Air Corps, they chose her, and so she was the one who put it all together. And there was one member of after the war, she was a member of President Eisenhower's cabinet. One of the cabinet members called her the best man on the cabinet. So she was really a go-getter and just, I think, a firebrand kind of leader that a lot of people don't know about. So one of my books that I'm hoping to get out there at some point would be her biography.
Oh, that would be super, and especially with all the women's stuff right now, you would definitely catch the female audience. What is one of the most memorable, and it's whether while you were writing or when you were out reading one of your stories, what would be one of the most memorable events that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I had a number of, when I was putting these stories together, I was able to meet with a bunch of people, interesting people. And again, so I'm going to talk about a person that you may not know his name, but his name is Bob Banner. And he was a Texas guy, grew up in Ennis, Texas. And he was, people called him Mr. Television because he was at the beginning of television. It's not that he was on camera, but he was a producer, and he produced things like Showtime at the Apollo and the Carol Burnett Show and the Gary Moore Show. People who've been around for a while will recognize those names. Won a number of Emmys, and one of the shows that he was the producer of that maybe most people would remember is Candid Camera. And so I met with him at a Starbucks here in Dallas, and just talking about some of his adventures and stuff. And he told funny stories about Candid Camera, funnier than what was on whatever made the screen. And so it was just a pleasure. He was just such a nice, gentle man who was smart as a whip and knew everything there was about television, and obviously was in the industry for 60 years doing amazing things. So that's another one of those Texans who made a difference in the world, and we may not know his name.
Yeah. Well, and if you met him at Starbucks, it must have been recently.
It was about 15 years ago, right? Yeah.
Okay.
About 15 years ago.
That hadn't been around.
There was
forever,
some Starbucks around then, yeah.
Yeah, they definitely were. Well, if you were going to give advice to someone who wanted to get into writing, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, it sort of depends on what kind of book you're writing. I'll mention a little bit about children's book writing because I know we've talked about children's books. And so authors who've had things published get this question a lot. So let me just talk a little bit about children's books because it's similar with other books as well. But if you're a children's book writer or any other kind of writer, there's typically a professional organization that you need to look for. And in children's book writing, it's called the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, or some people call it SCBWI. And you can look up scbwi.org. And it has thousands of members all over the world. And it is really the instigator of much of what goes on in the children's book world. So if you're going to write a children's book, you need to be in that professional organization, or any other book. There is a Romance Writers of America, that would be one. There's a Mystery Writers of America. So there's organizations like that. And what I will say about writing a book is it's like learning how to play an instrument. You don't just go out there and learn, in 6 weeks or something like that, and write yourself a novel or a children's book. Talking to children's books writer, it can easily take 10 years of learning the craft and really honing your product before you can get published. It's not as easy as people may think.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Well, we're getting ready to wrap this up, so would you mind telling us where they can get your books?
Yes, I have a website. It's alan-c-elliott.com, and that's spelled ALANELLIOTT.com. In Alan, there's one L, and Elliott, there's two L's and two T's, so alan-c-elliott.com. We'll take them right to my website, and it's mostly about my children's books, but you can click on books, and it'll show you other books and the movie as well that I've written, and also the music, The Legend of Big Tex. The Legend.
Now, is that the only song in
that's the only song I have recorded. I've written some other songs, but that's the only one recorded right now.
That's the only one recorded. Well, Alan, it has been a pleasure talking with you and learning a little more about your craft and how you got started and your books. I wish you all the luck in the world. And this is Charlotte-Canion. I've been your host. And I want to share one little thought with you. A rose is like a book. You can't know its beauty until you look at it. And a book is like a rose. You won't know its full beauty until you open it. This is Charlotte. Have a nice day.
Have you ever thought what you would do if you had to put your life on hold to parent your parents? Charlotte-Canion has lived the journey caring for 3 parents with dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. Her book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents, is a survival guide for adult children caring for aging seniors. Her book is available at books.txauthors.com, Amazon, or your favorite bookstore.
Well, hello there, my friends. My name is Randy James, independent voiceover producer in the Dallas, Texas area, available to write and record a 30-second commercial, much like the one you're hearing right now. It's a great way to help increase awareness and exposure to your book title. It's easy to do. Simply call me and we'll brainstorm on a few ideas, and in a few hours, I'll whip something up and send you a digital file ready to use. Remember, call or text me, Randy James, at 214-762-1942. Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.